You have to change because the world is changing whether you think it is or not. I will remember this, and it's one of those 5 moments you look back in a company and say, this was it. And it was, I am unabashedly unafraid to make a mistake and say, that was me. Business is jumping off the cliff and constructing the plan on the way down. We spend 92% of our marketing budget on when you realize that treating the customer well and they come back to you is really the key in D2C. It all comes together. And here's the key. If someone's D2C and you're smaller and you're figuring this out, here's the real key.
Ready to rapidly generate winning ad ideas in 2025? Motion, the creative analytics and research platform used by brands like Hexclad, Viore, True Classic, and Jones Road Beauty, just released their explosive new report on what really works with meta ad creative. This report is more fact than feeling, featuring never-before-seen insights from Motion's analysis of $100 million in ad spend, a survey of 500-plus ad experts, and deep-dive interviews with some of the most elite performance creative teams in D2C, including experts like Nick Sharma and Sarah Levinger. What's inside? The 7 biggest creative trends for 2025, including how humor is making a comeback in ad creative, the rise of earned nostalgia, and the ad trends that will help your brand stand out this year. This report is packed with real ad examples, new data, and novel techniques, from making AI-enhanced creative concepts to bleeding-edge creative ideas for advanced teams. Get your free copy now at motionapp.com/creative-trends and start rapidly creating ads that get attention and scale. It's the D2C Podcast, and I'm here with Curtis Matsko. Welcome. How you doing today, Mr. Portland Leather Goods?
You know, the world treats me pretty well.
I got that sense in our pre-interview. I think I was just kicking myself after our last pre-interview because it was such an electric conversation. You have a really infectious energy about you. Probably get people telling you that.
I hear that all the time, and I also hear that the pre-interview often goes much better than the actual podcast. I hear that a lot too. That was a great conversation. We were killing it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I had to send out a big long tweet thread after just to capture some of your pearls of wisdom. But I hate to make you repeat yourself, but why don't you give our audiences who might not be familiar a little bit of your hero's journey with your business?
You know, I started this up when I was living in Portland, and basically my girlfriend had a really bad job at the time. And I said, quit your job. What we're going to do is we're going to set up a company. And she was dumb enough to quit her job. And then she said, what are we going to do? And I said, well, I haven't really thought of that yet, but how about, and I went down to my garage, I made a leather journal. And I said that we're going to sell this leather journal and make $100 million. And she's like, oh shit, like I'm dead. I'm just in so much trouble. And she stuck with it. And we went out to art festivals and we really learned how to deal with people. I think that was the really important thing, that we really learned how to see what people wanted, talk to people, have them pick it up, turn it around right there in front of you while you're sitting in a lawn chair and saying, yes, I like this, or this is what I don't like. And we started setting records. We started doing $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on some weekends in art festivals. Went on to Etsy, and within about a year and a half, we became a top 10 all-time seller on Etsy. Moved on to Shopify and built up PortlandLeatherGoods.com. And, when we were doing art festivals, we were just Curtis and Caitlin selling stuff at an art festival. We didn't even have a name, right? So went on, we found the name Portland Leather Goods, owned by an Australian company. We paid about $1,000 for it. We're living in Portland. We bought it off them and it just took off, and we doubled every year. And now we're the largest leather bag manufacturer in North America.
Why do you think it had such amazing product market fit versus other bags that are out there?
The market fit is why I started the company. When I was in 5th grade, I had a teacher and he read me The Lord of the Rings. Did we talk about that?
No, we didn't. No, I love this.
Oh my gosh. I went in and this guy was, Mr. Schroeder was amazing. He smoked a pipe, had a tweed jacket, these big black Michael Caine from the 60s glasses. And he said, I'm going to read you these books. And he read us about The Hobbit, The Fellowship, The Two Towers. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And that whole thing was like, wow, I wanted a leather journal. And I asked my parents, can you get me a leather journal for Christmas? Because Bilbo wrote everything for The Lord of the Rings in there. And they gave me, I opened it up. I was so excited. I knew my parents wouldn't let me down. I opened it up and I swear to God, it was a pink plastic diary. I know it was a diary and not a journal because it had diary written on the front cover, had a little lock and key, And so I opened it up and it wasn't refillable. So I started writing. It was dumb. And then my brother took something and broke it open so he could see what I was writing in my diary. And I said, Mom, Dad, Bilbo did not write the Red Book of Westmarch in a pink diary. He wrote it in a leather, beautiful journal. And I always thought about that. And when I became older and I wanted to use things, I kept looking. I'd go to Barnes & Noble. I'd go to stores. And I'm like, yeah, I'd like a leather journal. And you'd pick it up and you'd say, is this leather? Like, is this actually leather? Like, I have a book right here. This may or may not be leather. Right? Like it's just sitting on here as a gift that somebody gave me. I don't know, but that's what they meant. And I really wanted this. So I went into a little store, bought this piece of leather. Eric, I got to tell you, I was so scared. It was probably 2 foot by 2 foot, this piece of leather. And it took me a week to get the guts to cut it. It was so precious to me, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I made this journal. I was so proud, and I walked up and I handed it to my girlfriend. I said, see, this is going to make us a bunch of money. And she's like, oh, we are in so much trouble. We are in so much trouble. But we learned and we learned and we got obsessive and we got obsessive and we learned what we're doing and we grew. And the product market fit hits this way. Leather is recyclable, okay? You may not know this, Eric. In Brazil, they're throwing out 20 million hides of cow hides. Because
Did not know that.
To use it because everyone uses plastic, or as you may know, vegan leather, right?
Yeah.
Because now the reason that they marketed it vegan leather and they love using plastic is because it's cheap. It's easy to cut. You can put it on a large machine, a CNC machine. It will cut every single one identical. Now, when you have a piece of leather, it has a weird shape to it, and it takes hands. It takes people to look at every hide, mark where you don't want, check it out, put the cutting everywhere. It takes a lot of time. It's very artisan no matter how you do it if you use real leather. And so people just don't want to do it. So when people actually picked it up and said, wow, it looks like leather, it feels like leather, holy shit. It smells like leather. Like we have photos of people like just putting their heads inside of the bag saying, I have leather, but I've never been able to smell it before. Why? Because they got something. This is actually, I'm sorry. I will turn what company this is. It says it's a very fancy brand from New York. It said, this is leather. Dude, that is not leather. That has leather hide underneath, and then they covered it with plastic and they stamped it to look like leather. This is Pergo. This is vinyl floors compared to wood floors is exactly what that is. But it all looks alike, so it's easy to make purses out of, right?
Because it's uniform. It doesn't have the natural grain. It's predictable. And it's funny. I've gone down that rabbit hole of the guy who cuts bags apart, and he's constantly finding these really high-end brand name bags are actually just veneers, leather veneers, and they get inside and it's like, there isn't real, but I imagine when they cut yours open, they have good things to say.
Leather. Yeah, hey, wow, this is actually real leather. It's actually really good leather, Our hardest thing is finding enough of the right leather, the beautiful leather that just looks and feels, and that's why we put our maker, which we call the studio in Leon, Mexico, because this is the heart of tanneries in North America. All the U.S. hides all come down here. And they're made into all the leather boots that a lot of those fancy leather boots that people wear around that those are made right here a few blocks away from me. So that's why we moved it down here. It's funny I didn't mention the Lord of the Rings because Joseph Campbell wrote this book about the hero's journey, about the 12 steps being pulled out of where you are and going through all of these steps. And it is very similar to what I read in 5th grade with The Hobbit. Bilbo sitting there and Gandalf says, hey, let's go on this adventure. And the first thing he says is, no, he doesn't want to go, right? He hides away. They all leave. And then he ends up running out. Then you go through adventure. Then you go all the way to the end and you face the dragon. And what happens at the end? You come back home and you are a different person. That is what a hero's journey is. And that's a lot of the things I have. When I say that I have followed the hero's journey, I have followed the journey of having to change who I am to get better, to be able to do the things that you want to. I'm the perfect person to have a garage company with my girlfriend, right? Because she's just patient enough that I can go down there and listen to music and make a bunch of leather goods and go up and she'll say, oh, you're a good boy. Now go back down and make some more, right? That works really well for me. Getting out of that and going to art festivals and putting everything, well, that's the first step. Going on Etsy, that's the next step. Doing manufacturing in Portland, that's a big step. Coming to Mexico in the middle of COVID and setting this up, right? All of the things that we do, each one of those is breaking through a glass ceiling. And that is really what it's about. I have to break through 3 or 4 ceilings a year to get to the next level of the company that we have. And the reason I do that is because we now have 1 million customers who expect us to make really beautiful leather bags and deliver it to them on time with new designs. And it ceased being about me and my garage. And that's the freaking pressure, right? Now the pressure is people are out there waiting for that leather and that new one and saying, what are we going to do? It's Christmas. I want to give that gift. Because Eric, I found this out. If you give a gift to somebody and it's made out of real leather, it's important. No one says, I'll buy something. I'll buy a leather journal. I'll buy a leather bag for my friend. I just get rid of them. No, it's always for an anniversary. It's always for my sister. It's always something important, so we can't screw it up. So that pressure from the garage where there was no pressure to just gaining and having employees and having customers and having people rely on you, those are a lot of things. I'm the youngest of 4 boys. Deep down, I'm just a spoiled brat. All youngest kids are really spoiled brats, right? But all of a sudden, the company grew to where I get to take care of not only my employees, but my customers. And that's time to step up and really use your integrity and figure out what you're doing and take care of business so that we can keep running, keep growing.
Interesting dichotomy of sort of that idea of burning the boats, being willing to, make these big, fast changes, all the while you're aiming for trying to build a legacy brand. You're trying to build a brand. The products are going to be heirlooms, as you mentioned, but you're also trying to build a brand that lasts 100, 500 years potentially, right? So it's an interesting dichotomy of always moving fast, always being willing to maybe give up what you were before to become what you want to be. Describe what your goals are with this bad boy.
Wow. No, I'm going to go back to your first part of that, and then I'm going to tell you your goals, okay? You have to change because the world is changing whether you think it is or not, okay? If you're sitting in your apartment or in your house or in your condo or you're wherever you are, the world is changing around you. You walk outside the same street, it's changing. I just bought a friend's book. He's a guy who wrote a book, and I said, I want that book. And I bought the book. They delivered it to my house in Mexico. And fun, I picked it up, and I looked at the back page, and it said, made in Dallas, Texas, January 10th. So they literally printed that book when I ordered it on Amazon. The order came in, and the book got printed, and then it went through custom, and I received it 4 days later. That's crazy. That's something you wouldn't have thought about 10 years ago. So yes, leather seems like a legacy artisan. It's leather. It's the same old stuff, but we better get the right leather, make the right bag, get it there on time at the right price, make sure all of those things work because we're in a much different world now. So I'm creating that type of thing up. So I'm really, really working. My goals on the company are this. We now have, if you're listening on a radio or something like that, you can't see this. If you're actually on a YouTube, you can actually see some people walking around behind me. Actually, These are called stitching lines, and they're actually stitching our products right there. Now, over in other buildings, they're doing that. Like people are looking inch by inch and marking them and cutting them and matching them and bringing them into the stitching lines. Now that we have this, we can now grow at a very efficient way, meaning we can get our costs down by making more efficiently. That means we can give more to our people that work for us. That means we can give more to our customers. That means we can do new designs and spread into other things. And And Eric, we've talked already, and I have a little bit of energy. I get really bored. So part of my goals is I plan to grow this next year and the next year and the next year and the next year. And I can't see past 3 years. I'm going to tell you right now, because if you are there, hey, you two folks, take a look at this. This did not exist 5 months ago. It didn't exist. Where I am, this was just concrete, and that was concrete. And there were still no walls up here, right? Like we were having this built. So we moved. So 3 years from now, I have no idea where we're going to be. So my goals kind of go with 3 ways. What am I doing today? What am I doing next week? And then next year, how do we pull that? How do we pull this together? What are all the things that we need to do?
And now that you're vertically integrated with this amazing facility, I'm just curious to talk about your decision-making process to double down or triple down or whatever you had to do from where you were before you were vertically integrated to be like, okay, I'm going to spend another 10 million or whatever it cost to bring all of this in-house. What was that decision-making process like?
It was always in-house. So
it was always in-house. Okay.
Yeah, I started in my garage, and it was a concrete floor. So I went to the Salvation Army and bought some old rugs. Not Salvation Army, the Goodwill, and bought some old rugs, put them on the floor of my garage, and I would sit on the rugs and hand cut things and hand cut each piece that we were actually doing. Then we moved into a 2,000 square foot facility, which was actually, this is Portland, Oregon. So it was actually a pole dancing studio. It was all purple. Every wall was covered with mirrors, and there were literally poles when we moved in, right? So I'm going to tell you, I know your answer. There's an old lollipop commercial that says, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? How many layers of white paint do you need to go over purple? 7. You need 7 layers to cover up all of that bright purple and get this beautiful thing. But we moved into 2,000 square foot. Then we knocked out walls and went to 4,000. Then we went to the 24,000. And then we made everything in Portland. We have a big white building, and we made everything there. So it's funny. I have pictures. In the same room is customer service, shipping, design, the sewing machines, the clicker presses, all in a small room where we're in the boxes and you're moving it over and pushing it through. We did it all there. But then something called COVID hit. And we were in Oregon, and Oregon was very tight. So basically they said, congratulations, you're out of business. You have no products because you can't make the products, right? And I said, well, that really sucks because we really were starting to do something, Gosh, we really had something. And I will remember this, and it's one of those 5 moments you look back in a company and say, this was it. And it was, my marketing guy said, books will be written about people who got scared and people who took the big step to become successful. He said, don't have the book that says you were scared so your company got shut down. I said, shit. He's right. So I put on masks, and I couldn't fly to León, Mexico, because there were no flights even at the time, right? So I flew to Guadalajara. I had somebody pick me up, and we had fortunately been buying leather from some tanneries down here. So I came into town, had some people pick me up. You couldn't start a bank account. You couldn't start a company because all the businesses are shut down, right? But there was one thing that was there. There were 50,000 leather artisans who were out of work. So we started with 5 sewing machines shoved up against a wall and said, hey, does anybody who knows how to sew leather want to come and make this stuff? And we had a line of block long. And all of a sudden we said, wow, if you treat these folks well, they are, it's not just that they're amazing stitchers and artisans. Their dad was, and their uncle is, and their grandfather did, right? And they're very proud. The stitchers are like people who are they are very proud of what they do. And all of a sudden we're like, oh my gosh, we thought we knew what we were doing in Portland. Our bags sucked. Truthfully, hey, I stitched some of our first bags. There's I still know people that have them, and oh man, that is not, the leather's great, but the quality of how we put that together sure wasn't. I'll tell you that.
How big is your team in total now?
About 1,200, I'd say.
1,200. Quite an enterprise. That's pretty cool. I see you on LinkedIn quite a bit these days. I think you're getting more active on Twitter, the D2C Twitter sphere, and you're one of those fully integrated entrepreneurs who you're sewing your first leather bags, but you're also intimately involved in the growth side of the business and talking about that. What do you credit as being besides the amazing product market fit, the amazing product, what's been your main engine for growth to scale this up to where you have?
Mariana.
Hey, Mariana. Nice.
No, absolutely not. She's wonderful. This is my assistant. I have a lot of energy, but I am here and here and here. I jump around a lot. And one of the things that does is I don't set a goal and take the 10 steps to get there. I go wherever it takes in the 38 departments that I have in my company. And wherever the problem is, I go there. I'm like one of those fire jumpers who goes in. You jump in and say, I can work on this today. Let's fix it today. People are like, yeah, let's set up a meeting for tomorrow. I'm like, no, we don't do it tomorrow. Like, this is the meeting. Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. Let's do it today. So if you're always taking your weakest spot and you're correcting that, then all of a sudden you just naturally get stronger. And when you do that very, very quickly, because we work off of velocity, which is just absolute speed wins in this, right? Because no matter how much you think it through, you're still going to mess up. So why not mess up real fast and say, uh-oh, that's me, right? Like, I made that mistake. We can't do that. And we have to go on to the next step. I am unabashedly unafraid to make a mistake and say, that was me. Like, yeah, I messed that one up. Because I know that we're getting to that next step. And I know if you're on LinkedIn, like, people write, don't be afraid to take the step, and bullshit. All the people writing that, don't do it. But business is, one of the best quotes it is jumping off the cliff and constructing the plan on the way down. I absolutely believe that that's what we do. So when we came to Mexico and said, we're going to create this, not only did we not know how to start a company, you couldn't start a company because the government was shut down. And you say, what are you going to do for your taxes in a year? Because, we will figure it out, right? We will go forward, and that's the way that the world is, and we're going to make this work. So I'm going to tell you, no matter how much we grow, the DNA and the growth of our company comes back to me in the house in Selwood in Portland, and my girlfriend sitting on the couch with her MacBook, writing long messages on Etsy back to somebody, right? Somebody would say, hey, do you have this in a blue leather? And my girlfriend would go, oh, and she would write like a 2-page long, beautiful message to this person. I'm like, they just want to know if we have it, right? And she's like, no. And all of a sudden she has a friend. Like, right? I mean, and we said that, and guess who taught our first customer service? She did. And so we started hiring writers. Like, literally, one of the people we hired to work in our customer service won the National Book Award the year before in Australia for her novel. Like, we really did hire writers who were like, I am going to write a beautiful message to this person, right? That's DNA of who we were is still who we are. We opened up a store in Austin, and Mariana and I flew up there, and we're like, when does this store open up? And it was like a grand opening, so it was like, let's say 12 o'clock. We got there 2 hours ahead of time, and we had to park 5 blocks away. And we're walking up, and everybody is recognizing us and like, oh my gosh, Curtis and Mariana. And it's like we're walking through these crowds of people who, here's the funny thing, it's two-sided. They felt like they knew us, and we felt like we knew them. I stopped while they were getting ready, and I just walked down the line, giving everybody talking, giving them a hug, and they would ask me questions. And it was just like being at an art festival, except the 1,000 or 2,000 people were all coming into our store when the doors opened up, right? You know, you got to start on a strong basis. You got to start fast, but you still have to have a product, and you have to be around good people, and you have to treat people well. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to make mistakes. I'm going to tell you, Eric, I think we talked about this. When you are a leader, you will make decisions that hurt people that you love. Because I now have to take care of an entire ecosystem of entire customers, entire clients. So one person here that says, I think this and this, but don't, you know me. And I'm just like, yes, I know you. I love you. You will be better working someplace else because we need this right now. Does that make sense? You will hurt people that you love because I am in charge of this. And what we found out is, yeah, they end up better off when they're doing that, right? Sometimes I make a decision because we're so big that, nope, I can't explain why I made that decision. I have information that not everybody has, but it was a very rational decision that was taking care of them. But when I make it, they're like, what? And I don't have the ability to get on a loudspeaker and say, this is why I did that. Deep down, it's because I care. It's not because I am selfish. And that's growth. And I was a lazy, youngest child. I needed to grow in order to run this company. Let's put it that way.
Describe your three. You mentioned, I think it was you credited someone else with the rubric, but it was the 3-6-9 theory of hiring and internal training. Because this was something else that stood out to me in our pre-interviews. You talking about saying to employees, like, you're not where you need to be to get us to that next plateau, but I'm going to help you get there, kind of thing.
I'm going to call you out on this, Eric. Okay. I did mention something like that, but you read my LinkedIn in the last 3 days.
Oh, yeah. I just get, yep.
So you kind of mixed them up there. Number one on this side is I tell all of my managers, you are not good enough for who we will be in 1 year. They're just not, because we're going to increase by this much. And if you have a software company, you're like, pay a little bit more to shove some more coding to somebody. That's one thing. No, we have to increase the amount of leather that we order, the amount of tanneries that we do, the people who look through them, the chomping, the matching, the stitching, the quality control, the shipping, the customer. Does that make sense? In order to grow by 50 or a double, you are literally growing at this huge rate. So I tell my people, I tell the head of marketing, I tell the head of retail stores, I tell everybody, you are not good enough. You will be. And we're going to work together, and you have to be better next year, because what that does is it lets them live up to the challenge. Okay. Think about a college freshman football player. They were just the big stud in their high school. They're bigger, faster, stronger. And they go in and all of a sudden they're getting their ass kicked by bigger, stronger people. And you say, you're not good enough right now as a freshman, but you will be, right? And all of a sudden in the software, they're seeing the field a little bit more. And as a junior, they're starting. And as a senior, they're an All-American. You know what I mean there? That's what you have to do as a company. You're going to get better. Now, in order to do that, not everyone's going to do that. So the 3-6-9 is really important. I used to ask my HR, who are the best two people in this division or here or here? And it's always the same people. You know who they are, right? And then I would say, who's the one that if we had to let one or two people go, who would you let go? And they're like, oh no, they're all really good. And what they really want is to know of a bad employee that they can say, but you have to go through the spiel. It's like negotiating in old cultures, like you have to haggle. I'm like, oh no, you can do it. Well, if I had to, Eric, that guy is a jerk, and you know what I mean? They really want somebody. But the difference is when you don't have someone who stands out bad, you just have some mediocre folks, right? So 3-6-9 fixes that. You take everyone in the division, you say, who's a 3, who's a 6, and who's a 9? Because they always want to say people are a 7 or an 8, right? So they're like, okay, here's your 9s. 9 means you never want to lose that person. If they came to you and they wanted to quit, you would cry, right? Like, you keep that person. You treat them well. 3s, you got to be looking at making sure that they go somewhere else in the world because they're not meant to be for your company, right? If they're a 6, you make an action plan that week of how to get them to a 9. Because if you leave a 6 alone long enough and don't give them the support, they'll become a 3 and then they'll be gone. And you owe it to them to give them the chance to say, you can be a 9, you can be a superstar, you can be better. So you hear and see a lot of coach in me. And I literally would have loved to have been a coach. If I was a little bit better athlete and could have proven myself a little bit more there, I probably would have went the coaching route. I'm really glad that I didn't, but you can kind of hear that from time to time in the way that I approach people.
Yeah, that's interesting. One of the things I'm talking about with people on the podcast all the time right now is this idea that for many years we had Meta, and Meta was this all-in-one direct marketing platform that we were bringing new customers in and converting them. But there's this sort of feeling that I'm hearing from a lot of brands now that a lot of brands are kind of thinking about moving budget away from super saturating the bottom of their funnel and moving it into higher funnel activities, into things that really bring new awareness, new eyeballs. And I'm wondering if that's a mindset that you have at your business's scale and what you're doing at that like top of funnel to grow brand awareness.
Oh, Eric, you just want to start a fight, don't you, huh?
I want clips. I want clips, hot takes.
We spend 92% of our marketing budget on Meta and Google, okay? And we are very efficient. It works really, really well. If anyone else had a business like ours that was working as well as ours and they had our numbers, they would spend 92 to 94% of their money in Meta and Google because it works. And my people are like, why would I spend $1 over here when I can do that? And that's the debate, right? But me says, because stuff happens. Because we're talking in 2025, but last February, March in Meta, that was a hell world out there, right? That was like, they're lying. Meta's just like, here, come talk to our people. And they are lying to your face about what they're doing with the algorithm, right? My people who are smarter than them are just like, oh, come on, look, this is like that. They were lying, but it didn't matter. All of a sudden, you're screwed. And we're just burning money. So what happens when that day comes? So that's part of that, right? So as the CEO who's in charge of taking care of everybody, I'm like, what about the 20% that we're spending to build brand, to find other areas and all of these things that are out there? Now, because we're D2C, do we use AppLove? And yes. Okay. Now we'll spend $40,000, $100,000 a day. I think this year the math was we will average $112,000 in marketing online. Okay. Pinterest will work between $800 and $900 a day. It will not work for a cent over. You cannot scale that thing over 1,000, but it's efficient at 800. So that's not going to scale a company. So we're always kind of testing this, but my people are very wary because they know what we do works. But I'm like, well, why aren't we doing something else? But I like the dollars that we get now because I'm not wasting anything. So you are literally, you said I have high energy, Eric. I didn't sleep last night worrying about the same damn thing you just brought up right now. Why am I not doing
funny.
other things? Why do I not have this affiliates and influencers? And why aren't I on this? And why am I not doing this? There's so many different things out there. And because I thought right now we don't have to.
Yeah. It's
That's
working.
my side of that, but anyone here could get on and you could tell me the argument the other way and you would probably win the debate.
As someone who's shopped for a lot of leather goods, part of me wonders if it's just like a form factor. Like your Google shopping must be banging from people that will like side scroll a Google shopping link and see your product. And even if they're not, I think a lot of people are aware of the brand, but just like the form factor and the look of your product might be enough to still bring in a lot of top of funnel traffic from these platforms. I don't know.
You know, it's so funny because we're D2C folks. So I know everybody and you know everybody and they all know the guy stuff, right? 98% of our stuff is women's, right? So people are like, Portland Leather Goods, I think I heard about you from Triple Whale or this or this. And I'm like, here's Ridge Wallet or here's True Class. If it's a guy thing that they can shove in their pocket or they can wear, they're like,
That's true.
Yeah, that's the brand, right? But we're big. But we are focused, bam, right there in on those women directly to them on their phone. And we're digital stalkers. Like if you make this, I warn people, I just say, hey, they're like, what's your company? They'll have their phone out. And I'm like, don't. If you go to our website, I will track you around the world for the next 3 months, having you buy leather bags. You'll as you're getting another 3 boxes, you'll be saying, why did I meet that Curtis guy on a plane?
Pure. And that's why AppLovin probably is working so well for you too, because that's probably a very heavy female audience. I'm blown away by that, as it's one of the more having been in this space for a long time, I've never seen a traffic platform move into the space with such a buzz and with such an ability to scale, as you mentioned, right? Like very few can reach those levels. Like TikTok doesn't get that big for you, I imagine even.
We've never done TikTok.
Never done TikTok. Interesting. Why not? Just one of those things.
Yeah, I told you I was up all night, buddy.
That's one of those things.
It's like, I mean, we test around at little things, but we're just like, if you're going to do any type of marketing, even if you're a big company and a proven company like we are, you're going to spend a lot more money at start to get the momentum to figure out what works before you can scale. And right now we've already done that. We already know what works. We already have it. Let's go back to the True Classic thing. Okay. Let's go back there. Okay. Their front page is identical to what it was 4 years ago. Identical. They haven't changed that thing. And people are like, well, you need to update that. I'm sure Ben is just saying, screw you. Like, that thing is proven. We A/B tested that thing 100 times. That works. Why would I screw around and do something else? New is not better. New is not better. So App 11 comes out. My guys were App 11. And I basically did this. I'm like, yeah, a little bit, test it. Now, here's a fun story. Eric, you might appreciate this. They were only taking big accounts, so they took us there, and so we started like in August, and it worked great. September, October, November, we're killing it, right? They were sending the invoices to the wrong email, and it never went to our accountant. So finally, the end of the year comes and says, you owe beep, 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 beep. This enormous number. And I'm like, guys, when you sign up for expensive software, please make sure it goes to the accountant so we don't get $1 million bill.
Not loving that. Loving that app.
You know what? Hey, it all circles out. It all comes back. You spent it. You got your race on. You got it. And here's the key. If someone's D2C and you're smaller and you're figuring this out, here's the real key. We can buy customers at a profit, right? We buy customers at a profit. I don't care if it's a penny, but we get more than that. But the second time they buy, our gross margins are huge.
Yeah.
And right. And then once we owned our own makers, ability, then I can gain a few cents here and a few cents here and a few cents that other people can't. So then we get those margins. So then we can give better value. Then we can give better customer service. Then we can scale. Then we don't have to take out loans. Then we can do all of these things come together. When you realize that treating the customer well and they come back to you is really the key in D2C. You're not focused here. You're not focused. You have to look at the entire journey, the entire digital hero's journey that we kind of talked about. When you realize that, it all comes together. And if we go back to the art festivals I started with, I'm a sucker. So when you have leather journals and leather bags at an art festival, you will have wealthy, middle of the road people and broke people come into your tent. And it's usually a college student who's really awesome or really smart. And they pick something up and they say, this is amazing. I love this. They can't afford it because I was broke in college, right? I used to have to scrape up 26 cents for a Mountain Dew refill, 25 cents plus one in sales tax, right? I'm like, where do I find 26 cents so I can get myself a refill? And I would feel so sorry for these people. I'd like, hey, you can have that. Or after they said, here's the money, I would turn around and give them half the money back. After they purchased, I would do that. Not before, not a trick. The next year, they would bring their family and their cousins and everyone else. So as much money as we spend on Meta and Google, the number one way people hear about us is friends or family. It's word of mouth. It's someone saying, look at this. Here's the bag. And that's the growth model that you want. Now, I would like to say that when I was trying to impress this girl, which it all starts with, I would like to say that I had all that all in mind. I was just trying to impress the girl. But we lucked out and we got a great product. And we got a product that could scale. And we were able to change enough with it to make it work. It didn't work that way for when we started, there were a lot of handmade leather companies around. There was a lot. It was a big artisan era. And I picked out 5 and said, I want to be like these 5. Bankrupt. Not bankrupt, but I don't know how they're staying in business. Yeah, I really, really don't. And the other one is calling me every day saying, can you loan me money or can you buy my business? All 5 gone or near bankruptcy.
And is that because they didn't reinvent in the same way? They didn't have the momentum. They didn't have the velocity that you've architected here. Like there's lots of reasons for it, but can you think of a blanket for why they didn't make it the way you have?
We're going to go sports again here, Eric. They're like the 8th grader who was bigger than everybody else, who did this in football, and he thought he could use that same move for the rest of his career. And he'd say, I have this one move where I just run over somebody, right? Or I do this, and it doesn't work. What they did is I would talk to them before they would go bankrupt. Usually they'd call me 6 months before bankruptcy, right? Because they already have the debts. They already know the short-term loans are reeling around like that. They've taken off all those Shopify loans where they start taking out your money and they're in trouble, right? They'd call me up and say, we have a great business. We have a great business model. We're proven. The problem was what they thought their success was holding them back. They're like, we do this and this. And I'm like, yes, that's your problem. We make a bunch of money on personalization, right? Because they get it. And I'm like, okay, so you have to have the exact SKU in stock. You have to get it. You have to take it from there, handwrite or come up with that order. You have to have a person make sure they can, everything correct, put it together one by one and send it out. You think that is wonderful. You make extra money on it. You got an extra customer. The problem is you literally just slowed your thing down by 8 times by trying to do that. And they thought it was their strength. They didn't move on. They said in 2008, this worked. In 2016, this worked. In 2018, it worked. I'm like, come on, guys. It's a little past that time.
Interesting. Well, the last question I wanted to ask you was just about, you mentioned when I asked what your secret of your growth factor was, you turned the camera over to Mariana. And I see her in a lot of your content. I wonder, for someone like you that moves as quickly as you do and goes into so many areas, how important is it to have someone like a Mariana to help pick up the pieces and help kind of order the chaos a little bit?
Pick up the pieces and order that. Man, he gives you a lot of credit there. I like that.
He knows what he's talking about.
I think so.
This is her right here. And then I'm going to turn back and actually answer this question because I'll be very sincere on what this was. For me, if it wasn't for my girlfriend, I couldn't have started the company. Well, I still could have made the product. But she said, when you start the company, what do? I promise, this is the quote I told her. I will promise people things, but I'll never do it. You have to follow me up and do the promises that I make people. I will tell people, I will refund that money. I'm going to forget. I'm not trying to be tricky. I just forgot. She has to do that. I will email you. Here's your business card. Okay, I'll keep that and I'll contact you. I'm going to lose that thing, right? So it started with my girlfriend, and then it started with another young lady that we had named Anna, and she worked and did everything. We built this up. Then we went on to Erica, and Erica's awesome, and she helped me. Then I came to Mexico, and it was Adriana, but they had full-time jobs while they're doing it. And then some genius said, hey, I got it for something. What if someone has a full-time job just making sure that Curtis does the shit he's supposed to do? And oh my gosh, here's the good news. It works and it's amazing. Here's the bad news. When she's not around, I'm absolutely helpless. I've lost all semblance of being able to take care of myself. She has to call me up on a Saturday afternoon saying, did you eat? Are you drinking things? Did you take your vitamins? Did you go for your walk today? Like literally has to take care of me because I'm a go guy and she has to guide me. Somebody one time described her as, a bowling alley and everybody goes bowling. When kids go, the little kids go, they have the bumpers that come so they can throw the ball.
Yeah.
And it can go back and forth, but it's not going to roll off. That's what she does. She keeps me at least going forward without going in the gutter. And it's essential. And I absolutely love it. Yeah.
I like that she's in your content too. I think that's good for your content to have someone else there.
I know we went long, but I have to tell you how that worked. We hired some people to shoot the very first content, and they had fancy cameras and lights, and we're going to be at this house. And it was just this stupid setup, right? And we had people talking and all this stuff. We probably did 3 hours, and it was all crap. But one of the guys he was drinking while we were doing it, went to go to the bathroom, and Mariana just sat down in the chair next to me. And we just she's pretended like we're talking. And at the end, when they sent us all the footage of the 3 hours, the only 3 minutes that were any good was me and her talking. So I literally took my MacBook, which I do everything on. We have no equipment. I set it down on my table at my house. She sits in the window, and here's the truth about our content, Eric. You'll notice it next time. I don't know what I'm going to talk about, and I hit the button, and it goes 3, 2, 1, and in that 3 seconds, I have to come up with something. So she absolutely does not know what we're going to talk about. And so if you want to talk authentic, those looks on her face looking like she is stunned that I'm saying something are absolutely genuine.
That's hilarious. Well, Mariana, next podcast, you'll have to be in frame even more.
I will definitely get some makeup, hair, everything.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Oh, you're great.
Oh,
you're great.
Oh my
Look at
gosh,
us.
why did you look
Ragged.
at me? I dressed up for today and look at you.
I
know.
He can
Excited.
edit. He can edit. He's got all kinds of software.
That's
and
right.
stuff
We'll
here.
put on the TikTok filter and make us look 10 years younger. Curtis, thanks so much for coming on today. I'm going to, everyone out there, if you want either men or women, amazing bags, go to portlandleathergoods.com. Also, I'm going to throw in your profiles for both LinkedIn and Twitter because you're a heck of a follow. And I like you're always in the threads. You're helping people out. You're a big part of that, big voice in that D2C Twitter space, which I always enjoy.
What I really, the LinkedIn is really where I've been able to connect with some really awesome people. And you just type in Curtis Matsko on LinkedIn. We now have a little thing we just started where Mariana has her own and I have mine, and we create our own content. And in the morning when she comes in, we talk a little bit about what we're going to do. We sit down at the kitchen table. We both post our thing right then, and we take the next 15, 20 minutes, half hour, depending on what we're going to do. And we literally, that's us talking. We're sitting there and we're answering those folks in the morning. And what it does is it creates boundaries on what we're going to do. Like, that's the time we're going to do. We can't just go on all the time, but it also makes us authentic in what we're doing. And we're fine. We love LinkedIn. We really do.
Nice. I can see it develop. I could see you on Shark Tank in the future. I could just see you as as a shark on one of those shows. I could see you got such a great personality for that kind of thing.
Well, I'm going to tell you a fun story that I'm really proud of. I'm really, really proud of this. You know what I'm going to say? We did a podcast at a producer called me from another country. He said, "Oh my God, you're it. I love this. I want to do a podcast." I'm like, I'm kind of busy doing my own company and everything. I'm like, Then I was just thinking, well, if I just did I want to do it. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to go in big, right? I'm going to really go in big guests and this, and I'm going to really go. And I said, well, maybe I need some big sponsors for that. So I got a call from this CEO of a pretty big company, and he was going to Washington to talk about the NAFTA and the new administration and the problems. And he was meeting with congressmen. They're meeting with all the people. He wanted to talk to me first. And I said, hey, he said, I think you make me laugh on LinkedIn. I said, well, why don't you sponsor, instead of going to Washington and I'll spend all this money, why don't you sponsor my podcast? He said, yes. I'm like, no, let me tell you what I'm going to do. He's like, yes. Of course we will. So I don't know if I'm actually going to do something on that, Eric, but he really said, we would love to sponsor you. And it's literally a company that I work with that I love. So maybe you're going to, and then he said, here's the sticker point. He said, if I do it, Mariana has to do it with me because I'm not a good enough draw on my own.
Need a sidekick. Last question. I know we're over here. Are you going to go to any trade shows this year? We're planning out some trade shows we're going to attend. I don't know if you have time for such things.
I went to my very first kind of thing like that. We won a bunch of awards at Triple Whale a couple years ago. And so I ended up going to that. I happened to be close. I went to a Geek Out, and then you meet everybody. And then I spoke at e-commerce roundtable, and I'm asked for things, but Eric, where do I go? Tell me what I'm supposed to do this year. We actually have, everybody's got this, but let's do this right here. Here's my big ass calendar right there.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
So I got to figure out where I'm going. And Mariana keeps saying, I need to book our events. Where are we going? So Eric, you tell me, where are we going this year?
Well, the first two that we're going to do, I think we're going to do Grow LA. We're going to do Shop Talk in Vegas. I've heard the biggest, baddest one of them all. I've heard it's a little overgrown maybe, but we want to go check it out. We're going to do some man on the street style interviews there, as well as Grow LA. So in February and March, at the end of February, March, those are the two we're going to be hitting up. And then beyond that, I'm not sure, but it should be good. I love Vegas more than I should. And I haven't been to LA in many, many years. So seems like a good time to visit.
Now, where are you physically sitting at now? And I apologize.
I'm in Victoria, British Columbia. So I'm in the Hawaii of Canada, we like to call it.
I have been to there, and it's absolutely beautiful, and it's a little more rural than I love, and it is gorgeous.
Yeah.
But I have never heard the Hawaii of Canada, but that's spectacular.
I'm trying to make it stick. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Curtis. It's great to hang out with you again. I look forward to catching up with you again in the future.
Of course, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at directtoconsumer.co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.